we're talking about content. It's not enough to just say it is our identity. It is who we are. It is what we do. Truly, do you really say you own something if you cannot profit off of it? If you're doing it and all that happens is you give it away every single time, what makes you the owner if you have no control over it? For instance, Cruise TV. I don't know how many people have encountered Cruise TV on YouTube. You probably have, but you may not know it is them. They make the most amazing, please can we give them a round of applause? Amazing content. They make me sit down with my team shouting at the screen. How can you say that? This doesn't make sense. And guess what? They only recently just announced that they do this, from a very small space. Even if now you guys have a bigger studio, clock it. Congratulations. And of course, when it comes to Dear Win, having to deal with creatives every single time, having to produce, the investment that goes into it, and also the lack of support that comes with it as well. I can only imagine how hard it is to do what you do. And then TikTok. Every single person here is on TikTok, am I correct? Every single person here is on TikTok. And why are we on TikTok? Because we want to be seen. But how can we leverage that desire to actually be seen? This is why we are here today. So I'm just going to start off with a basic foundation. The next slide, please. How important is it to ensure that in our creation, in our creativity, we have some level of sovereignty? And could you please explain what that sovereignty means? I'm going to begin with you, Ibidunni.
Thank you very much for that question. Sovereignty is very, very important, obviously. I think the reason why the world would listen to us in the first place is because we own our narrative, and our narrative is unique. So it just doesn't make any sense that when the world comes to us, then we lose control of what they came to us for. Bringing it back home, like, reason why we create what we create at Cruise is because we wanted to tell authentic African stories that would not be diluted in any form. And it just goes ahead to prove that the world will listen to you either ways, whether you try to appeal to a foreign audience or you try to appeal to the local audience. The most important thing is, are you authentic and do you own it to yourself? So bringing it down to the question of why we need to have sovereignty of our culture, of our content, is if we need to be unique and we don't want to remain be diluted like the rest of the world, we just have to keep being original and own our stories, own our storyline, own our culture, and don't dilute it. Yeah, basically.
I think that's a really interesting way to start. But when you talk about owning our culture, not diluting it, that now takes me to, Dare, visibility versus ownership, right? It's one thing to own our culture, not dilute it. That will give us some level of visibility. But how does that translate into ownership? Because owning our contents that people can see, is what makes us profit off of that content. So if you don't own it and it's just there, someone else can take your content, market it for themselves. So how do we rationalize visibility versus ownership?
Sure. So I'm going to speak from a point of view of someone that created a business in France and across Europe, and generated revenue by creating ideas and then sharing them globally. What I've seen over the course of the last 2 decades is that algorithm, platforms, and revenue have changed every 3 years. So for us creative, that putting out into the world our content and trying to make a living out of it, we need to be able to actually make sure we have a revenue stream that doesn't depend exclusively on others. Sovereignty means financial independence. Finding ways and means to generate revenue that whatever happens in the world or on a platform is not going to affect dramatically the way you live and the way you operate. So my goal as a creator and as someone that invests in creators is to make sure that not only we generate the best ideas, but we also have the infrastructure from a business point of view to make sure that we own those ideas and that we own them over time and can actually promote them, sell them, and repurpose them to sell them.
So let's bring you in, Kiki. How do we tell African stories in a world that really, if we're being honest, as Africans and as the, let me just say, as Black people generally, we are beautiful creators. And there is a focus right now on African creators and African content. But it almost feels, and this did not just start today, this goes as far back as when Beyonce released the Lion King film, and everyone was talking about cultural appropriation, not giving credit where it was due. That was a whole argument with two different sides of the debate. So there's always been this idea that they just want the culture. They don't want us as people. So how do you then tell an African story or tell an authentic story when it almost seems as if they just want our culture, but they do not want us? How do we separate ourselves from that?
Okay, well, I'm gonna look at it from the TikTok narrative, right? So, Ibidunni already talked about authenticity, originality, right? And this is what we preach at TikTok to creators. But now she's asked the question on, now there's this whole thingy around, they just want the African culture thingy without wanting the originator of it in that sense as a creative. Right. So on TikTok, we preach that you don't just put out content. You don't just put out original content. You need to also learn to build a community. Right. So you associate community building with your content. So it's not just okay to just put it out. It's very interesting, yes. But now a lot of persons behind the scenes, they may not vocally tell you that, but they really want to see who is the brain behind this content. Who really is this person? What is this person all about aside his content, right? So you need to learn that putting out your content is not just enough, but sit down, do that community building, right? On TikTok, we have a lot of community building features. We have our TikTok live, right? A lot of persons go on live. Some persons dance, some persons sing, but other persons who see it beyond all of that use the opportunity to interact with their audience. Use the opportunity to bring that content that is of high interest and portray it in a way that they associate it to their personality, to their brand, and then give that community the opportunity to ask questions and then relate it as well to their personality. And then daily and consistency doing all of that, you see that they start building their community, and then the interest not just becomes just for their content, but also for the personality behind the content.
Amazing. So now, Ibidunni, as Cruise TV, just so we can wrap up our introduction conversation, how do you own? How do you make sure that every content that you make, because again, the intellectual property is one thing, right? There's so many shows that you've started, shows, ideas that you've created, the debates, the ones where you have two people just going back and forth. How do you own it? What stops me or Kiki from coming to say, oh, I just saw what Ibidunni did and I loved it. I'm going to do it. So how do you own?
This is a very, very important conversation to have. And that's something that we also think about every day in our studio. On the internet, especially in the content space like YouTube and stuff, you cannot fully copyright or trademark an idea. You can only trademark the content you put out there. So then that brings me to, I think we'll talk about this even as we go on, is about building more than just the algorithmic platforms that you talked about. It's great for distribution and great for massive audience, but also how can we create our own original platforms where we can kind of have more IP laws and be able to regulate who owns this and who owns that. Great. YouTube, TikTok, and every other platform we use are all great. They've done really amazing stuff for creators like us in terms of distribution. But I think the next step to that will be the only way to incentivize the creators is how can we protect people's ideas. And I think it's a pathway that we're still working to figure out, but I think we'll figure it out going forward. Yeah.
Now, Dara, before I bring you in, I would like you to just touch on what he said, because again, you are back end, you are the TikTok, right? We put the content on your platform. So as a creator, if I start something and I'm doing it so good, how do I make sure that what I'm doing is protected? Not just the idea, but also the belief that what I'm doing will be seen. I'm sure a lot of creators here might struggle with being seen. They might have tried everything, dancing, jumping, but it's like you never get past that threshold of 100 or 50 views. So how do we make sure that our creativity, and how is TikTok protecting that?
Okay, so the journey of how do they say, the journey of 1,000 steps begin with a mile, right? Yeah. So that's this ideology. Even myself as human, I feel like, okay, if I start a new business today, then I expect it to bloom day one, day two, right? So the first thing that I would encourage creators to do is, when you go out on your creative journey, give it time, right? You put in the work, you put in all of the creative inspiration and all that bit. Give it time to blossom. Give it time. Don't expect automatic 1,000,000 views, or okay, because this person danced and had 1,000,000 views, I must dance, and all that bit. So what we always tell creators at TikTok is, maintain a stable theme. I mean, Ibidunni mentioned that every 2 to 3 years, algorithm changes, right? We usually have updates to features and all of that bit. Your account on TikTok has an algorithm. How you feed that algorithm is how it will dance to, right? So maintain a stable theme. We tell creators 80% a stable theme. Your stable theme could be sport, could be entertainment, could be movie reviews, could be food. Then 80%, and the other 20% can be any other thing, but maintain a stable theme, because in it you're building your algorithm traffic, and then you're building a lot of visibility therein, right? And then again, for some of the content practices, please forgive me, I'm a TikTok person, so I'm gonna be giving you like these tips. We see a lot of usage of hashtag FYP, hashtag viral. You feel like it's gonna give you visibility, but trust me, it does absolutely nothing. Like nothing. You can take this to the bank, it does nothing, right? So if you see a content that is doing well, it's not because it was used by hashtag FYP or hashtag viral. No, it's just because the creator's audience resonates with that content. The creator is able to do that authentic storytelling that matches his community energy. That's just the deal. So a stable theme, number one. Number two, hashtag usage must be relevant to your content. You can't be doing an entertainment content and then you're using hashtag sleeping, or hashtag jumping, or hashtag beauty, right? So no. So 80% stable theme, hashtag usage maximum of 5 for TikTok, right? TikTok algorithm is quite different. We are not a social media platform where our algorithm works with a content graph, right? That's why you can see someone with 100 followers having close to 1,000,000 views on his or her content. We don't deal with the general social media analogy. It's a content graph system, so it is dealing with you according to the content you're churning out and how it's going out there. So all of these best practices, we have a lot of tools which I know that I would mention in the course of this discussion. But I mean, if you understand the TikTok system, the TikTok algorithm, consistency is key. So you make your post today on your stable theme, maybe entertainment, tomorrow, next tomorrow, and all of that bit. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just to put those content and go and sleep. You need to interact. You need to do community building. You need to do all of that. So all of this bit, we churn this out regularly. If you go on TikTok, you see our Creator Academy. So this is one way we also try to ensure that your creativity, your content is protected. So regularly interact with our platform. Look at our Creator Academy on TikTok. And then for IP usage, right? Because I know this is a topic that has really come up, right? How do I ensure that my content is not being stolen by another person? We have different tools on TikTok that ensures that you are protected. So first of all, it is a two-way thing. You see your content stolen, please report. We have over 1 billion users on TikTok. We have, moderators, we have creator managers, we have partner managers and all that bit, right? sometimes we may miss it, but we also rely on you to report. And then once your report comes in, we treat it. You'll see all of those details. Once you click on report, you'll see all of those details that we ask you about to prove that this content is originally yours. And then if you're able to prove that, definitely it's taken down. Another thing we do is we have a flagship program which we call Level Up Africa. So in that educative program, we talk to you on how to protect your content, right? Some of you already do it, like watermarking your videos, right? That's fine, so that even when it's carried all around everywhere, it's still bearing your original name and all that bit. But in that sense, aside just that, report, number one, so that we can also help you. Number two, we have what we call the duet and the stitch button on TikTok. So if you don't want your content to be used by another person, you can just put that off. You can just put it off. Right, so let me just stop here so that other speakers would also attend to this here.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of tips from that, isn't it? Absolutely. Amazing. So we've spoken a lot about content, about IP, and you just said something very important. You have over 1 billion users on TikTok. Now, the population of Nigeria, definitely more than, not up to 1 billion, right? Meaning that you have people from around the world, different continents on this platform. The goal for every single person is, how do I take my content from point A to point B? Point B being bigger than my immediate environment. So I don't just want to be big in Lagos. I want to be big across Nigeria. I want to be globally recognized. But globalization comes at a cost. The cost is authenticity. Because if I'm this girl who, and I've gotten that a lot, like, Kachi, why do you talk like this? And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for the past, give or take, 15 years. And when I started, one of the primary things I was taught was how to speak. So your diction, the way you pronounce words, it was a very pivotal part of my job. I was made to read the news several times. Guess what? Because I had to sound a certain type of way that was globally accepted. I'm an Igbo girl from Anambra State, and I didn't school outside the country. But this, you can ask anyone who knows me, is how I speak, because I've done it and I've done it and I've done it. And I couldn't even speak pidgin to save my life, even if I tried. You know, but I mean, I do think I do try, just FYI. I don't think you can mess around with me in pidgin. But the point I'm trying to make is the cost of globalization we've now seen is almost authenticity, where we all feel like we need to do it the way the Western community does it to grow. Now, 15 years ago was a long time ago. Have things changed? Or would you say they're still the same? Dare, you haven't spoken. I'm going to begin with you, and then Ibidunni, and then Kiki can take over.
Wale,
my apologies.
I think things have changed. I mean, we live in a global world. We've been living in a global world since the information era started. Social media and the digital space have definitely accelerated the fact that information travels more, trends travel more, and what we watch, the culture we consume is part of a global trend. I'm surprised about how much Korean content Nigeria watches. So we are influenced by abroad. I also think there's an incredible opportunity. I do think that's one of the most inspiring things I've seen in the last 25 years is how Korea as a country has decided from a strategic point of view and very intentionally to build the K-Wave and have a whole structure in place to make sure that all the creators, whether they were filmmakers, whether they were K-pop artists, whether they were anime designers, could actually produce authentic work that would travel out to the world without any compromise. And I think what we're seeing now, successes like Parasite or K-pop Demon Hunters, are the result of authenticity, but with a global ambition.
Yeah, you see, now that's the thing. Just before you take, that's the thing I'm really trying to key in on. I don't know how many people have seen K-pop Demon Hunters here. It's a film on Netflix. Have we seen it? Okay. Now, if you remember, in K-pop Demon Hunters, the songs, for instance, Golden, it's nominated for a Grammy. That's how good the song is. But guess what? There's a Korean version of that song. But they chose to film the movie and perform the songs in English. So that's the thing. If I'm an Igbo girl, for instance, and I say my craft is I rap in Igbo, you know? And I say I want to do a short film. and it's going to be primarily done in Igbo language. I'm trying to be authentic, but how far is it going to go? Then you have people like Ashake who sing in Yoruba. So it's confusion, for lack of a better word. So Ibidunni, give us some context.
I think you just took it out of my mouth. I was just going to make a reference to Ashake and what Afrobeats have done in the last couple years. Just imagine Ashake was singing in English every time. Who would listen to him? I think one huge power that we've had in the last couple years is the diasporan culture of Nigerians abroad has been on a huge uprising, which they've been influencing. So one person might have a white friend who bring him to a concert or open Netflix and play Nollywood films. I think we have a huge power in terms of population is a huge strength for Nigeria, and it's great that everyone is jackpotting now, so it's fine. They help us push the culture.
Jackpada for me.
Jackpot is also there. So I mean, it's great that I've heard a lot of people that watch our channel and they'll be like, "Oh, my friend told me about this channel and I got stuck." If you check the friend, it's probably a Nigerian that just went there 2 years ago, something like that. And that's something that I think, as more new people start to see our culture and our content, I think it's more intriguing for them to see something new. You only pay attention to something when it feels different and it piques your mindset to want to learn about it. Burna Boy is selling stadiums all over, State Farm Arena, everywhere. People are singing in pidgin. They will accept you if they feel like you're original to yourself.
Yes.
I just something that comes to mind. I remember when I was in film school in London, and I was just having a conversation with a couple of my foreign friends. Someone was from Russia, someone was from, can't remember, maybe Turkey or so. And we were just talking about, what language do you speak in your country? And I said English, and they were like, what? You guys don't have your own language? And at that time, it just brought about a mental awakening that, they speak Russian, they speak whatever in their country, and we are speaking English. It was just a mental awakening that we need to accept ourselves more and become a little bit more original, so that people can even see us for who we are. Also, in terms of, at the end of the day, content and filmmaking is business at the end of the day, right? Look at, I don't know if we've seen My Father's Shadow. I don't know if you've seen the
Yes,
film.
My Father's Shadow.
Great film that's doing incredibly well across multiple festivals. It's been submitted for an Oscar now. Hopefully it wins. And I watched the film and I was so proud to see how representative and how original it was to our story. It was so well researched, and it showed that a Nigerian actually worked on this film. I think those are flagship examples that show that these things are possible if we stay original to ourselves. And I'm not saying that there's no middle ground that we can meet with global partners to make it more appealing, because at the end of the day, it's supposed to be collaboration. But where it becomes ownership, or is when they are diluting the content. I mean, a little bit of foreign actors here and there that are willing to adapt to the culture and speak the accent is great, but twisting the entire narrative to feel more appealing to the foreign audience, I think that's where we lose ourselves in between. Yeah, thank you.
I love that you brought up the example of My Father's Shadow. That was a really great one, because for those of you who do not know, My Father's Shadow is a movie that was produced primarily by Nigerians, but the funding of the film came from, I think it was the UK. Yeah, I don't have to mention the organization, but it came from the UK. So there was that argument as to whether is this really a Nigerian win, because this is a film produced by Nigerians. So it's established Nigerians have the talent, but the infrastructure to back the talent is not here. So what you now have is people coming from outside. I did Cannes Film Festival, and one of the things that happened at Cannes, there were hackathons, pitch sessions, and the French community, the French people are investing in Nigerian talent. So when you see them on the stage at the Oscars, you're not going to see the Nigerian industry. You're going to see the Nigerian producers alongside their British counterparts or French counterparts. And we see this happen over and over and over again. So that brings me again to TikTok, right? Empowering African creatives. What tools would you say are in place? Because you are the organization. What tools are you putting in place to make sure that as a creative, I can be authentic in every sense of the word? My partners can be from where I'm from. I can leverage on available opportunities from TikTok to expand my community. So what kind of tools are you putting in place for that?
Okay, I'll start with our flagship program, which we launched in 2023 into 2023. It's called The Level of Africa. So this is our bold commitment to creators in sub-Saharan Africa to empower at least 3,000 creators every year. Wow. Right? Yeah, so I mean, if you go on TikTok, you just search for hashtag Level Up Africa, you would see a lot of content and all of that about it, right? It started in Kenya. We partnered with Wowzy to launch that. Every year we do what we call the Creator Education Day. Sometimes we target Creator Summit. We did one in Lagos in September 20 precisely. We had one on October 15 in Ghana. We had one in Nairobi October 1st. In South Africa, we had September 13. So what really is this Level Up Africa program? Is our education program where we look to helping emerging creators scale their creative journey, not just on TikTok, not just online, but also offline as well, right? So we empower them. We have educative sessions where we empower them with our latest tools, updates to all of this. There's been a big question on, I'm a creative. What do I need to do to thrive? How do I make money off my content? How do I create high quality content? So these are some of the topics and sessions, practical sessions we speak to at our Level Up Africa program. Some of the tools we have brought in place to also aid creators in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa is number one, we have the collaborative tool. I know in my in my colleague's session this morning when she was giving the keynote speech somewhere on level 1, that there was someone who asked about, we don't have the collaborative tool. So it's available on TikTok if you have 30,000 followers and above, so you can collaborate in app. Don't do this creative journey alone.
So I think at this point it's safe to say that this has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you all so much for being here. To our panelists, Ibidunni, thank you so much for being here, the founder Cruise TV. Wale, thank you so much for being here, founder Dare Win. And Ekikere, thank you so much for being here, content manager at TikTok. And to you, the creators, don't stop creating. Just keep going. You're going to get there.